Legends of Time and Space is the sci-fi series by Dark City Games, the sci-fi series of pre-programmed paragraph-based adventures that can be played in solitaire as choose-your-own-adventure books with a stronger wargame component, or you can play them as role-playing games with a group of friends. I played fantasy adventures in this family by this publisher in the past. I enjoyed them, and now I wanted to try the sci-fi version. The sci-fi series, in terms of rules, is very similar to the fantasy series, so I'm not going to cover the general rules of the Legends of Time and Space series. If you do not know the rules of the fantasy universe of Dark City Games, I recommend watching my videos for Orcs of the High Mountains, where I talk about the system in general. And then if you know how the fantasy system works, you can follow pretty much what I'm going to say about the sci-fi series, and in particular about the one title that I played so far, Void Station 57. In this adventure, you and your crew just left the hyperspace with your starship almost empty of fuel, with almost no oxygen left. Luckily enough, Void Station 57 is right there, so you can just stop there to get some fuel. You're already thinking, oh, fine, I'm gonna relax, stretch my legs, get a Coke Zero, buy a lottery ticket, get some gas. But things are not gonna be as easy. As soon as you enter the station, you realize that something horrible must have happened. There are signs of a fight that took place in the station. Nobody's around, the station is dark, unpowered, there is no oxygen. And you're wondering what's going on. Why is the station all of a sudden a wreck that is floating in the middle of the universe, in the middle of nowhere, rather than, well, being a station that functioning with all the people that should be in there and all the activities that should be going on. So you have to explore this area. So this is your mission here. Get to the station and find a way to to return to your starship after you manage to bring back fuel and to reactivate the engines that would produce oxygen in your starship. So find a way to get in and out of the station, and also to make your starship functional again. In the meanwhile, well, I can already tell you, you will have some unpleasant encounters. Now let me show you the game a little more up close, and then I will tell about my impressions about the way in which the game plays. Let's have a look at the components. The game comes with a sheet of mounted but uncut counters. You need to cut them by yourself. These counters represent characters and landscape feature that will appear in the game. You have, for example, counters for your characters, counters for the enemies, and counters to indicate furniture that will be placed on the map to resolve certain battles. And of course, having furniture on the map will increase the number of tactical options that the players have. Furniture will get in the way of movement, can be used for hiding, for protection against enemies' attacks. So they just make the environment more interesting. Here, this big counter here is the boss of the game. I'm not going to show you the other side of the counter, so that I'm not going to give you too many spoilers. I'll leave it to you to find out who or what the big boss is. Here we have the map that is used to resolve combat. Following the instructions for each specific battle, you will place your counters and the counters representing the enemies and possibly the furniture on the map, and then combat will be resolved here. And then of course you have the main element of the game, which is the booklet, Void Station 57. The booklet starts with the rules of the system, and the rules of the system, Legends of Time and Space, are very similar to the rules of the fantasy system by Dark City Games. The main concepts are really the same. Points that allow you to buy skills for your characters to create strength, dexterity, and intelligence. The combat system is more or less the same. A difference is in the type and number of weapons that you can have. Of course, you have different weapons here from a fantasy universe, but also you have less weapons. I just had the impression that The Fantasy series offers more variety of weapons that you can use, and also here you have different types of armor, but there's no shields. And in the Fantasy universe, you can also have shields. Also, of course, in this sci-fi universe, you do not have the section about magic that you have in the other game. However, here you have specific rules about dogfights, but in this specific adventure there is no dogfighting. You do not even need to read these rules. Well, at least I played the game and I didn't find any situation in which I needed to resolve a dogfight. Maybe there is a sub-threat that I haven't encountered, but I suggest you just start playing, and then if you need to resolve dogfights, you go back here and you read those rules. The adventure starts here after an introduction about the specifics of the adventure. The adventure is not too long. I would say actually it's pretty much the shortest adventure by Dark City Games I've played, with the exception of the intro sample game. It has 169 paragraphs. The other adventures usually have 200 or so. And here you have the map of the station where your adventure will mainly take place. This is where your starship docks, and this is the map of the station. The station is made of 3 rings, 2 external rings and a core. These rings are connected by tubes, and you need to move through the station trying to reach the core. This is where the machines that you need to reactivate the oxygen engines of your ships are. So you need to get here, reactivate the oxygen, and then come back in here. This starship is, the station has no power, and also it has no oxygen, so you're just using the oxygen that is left in your reserve, and you only have 6 hours worth of oxygen. Now this is pretty interesting because as the game progresses, you have to keep track of the time that you spend doing pretty much everything in the game. Moving through an area costs 10 minutes. If you search an area, it takes you 5 minutes, and resolving a fight takes 5 minutes. And occasionally you may have other actions that will force you to spend time, or maybe you will be given the choice of doing a certain action several times, but the more times you perform that action, the more time you spend. For example, suppose you're trying to open and lock the door, then you can try, but if you fail and want to try again, then more time is spent. But a typical expenditure of time is entering an area, seeing some enemies there, fighting against those enemies, and then searching the area. That is a total of 20 minutes. Now you have to complete the game in 6 hours. This is how much oxygen you have. By the time you need to work your way in here, bring oxygen back to your starship and go back there, because you may not be able to actually bring atmosphere and oxygen back in the station. What you know is that you can put it back there, but then it means that you also need to go back to your starship before it is too late, because of course if you run out of time and you have no oxygen, you die, you lose the game. And I really like this idea, this countdown clock that you have. The adventure, or at least most of it, takes place in closed spaces, in this space station, so everything is semi-claustrophobic. On top of that, you had the sense of suffocation, the countdown clock that comes thematically from knowing that your characters are breathing the last air that they have available, that they only have a very strict, a very short amount of time to resolve the adventure. I think that moving through one of these things takes 20 minutes, and as you can imagine, probably it's not going to be as easy as just to enter from here, go straight to the core, and come back. You will have to go around to look for things that you need to complete the mission. If you keep all of these things into account, then you will realize that this is indeed a pretty exciting adventure, a lot of tension. It is pretty exciting. I wouldn't say it's a horror adventure because that would be too strong, but you do have this oppressive feeling of an adventure that you need to complete fast. This is a fun adventure. There are interesting encounters, entertaining battles to fight, some more challenging, some less challenging. Other tough decisions that you have to make at several joints of the story. But I think that what really holds the story together is the limited supply of oxygen that you have. Anything else, of course, works. You need this dark, scary setting. You need the encounters. You need the descriptions of the world around you. You need the claustrophobia coming from the dark areas of the starship. But what really gives the adventure its flavor is the fact that you have such a short amount of time. You are keeping track of the time that you spend, and this sense of impending doom, of a countdown clock that is ticking very fast and that forces you to rush to the adventure. Well, to me, that is really what gives the adventure its specific feel. Now, this is not without limitations, of course. I think that the adventure probably has a more limited replay value than other adventures by Dark City Games, in which even after you complete your main goal, you can keep exploring and having encounters, finding treasures, so you can keep finding monsters to gain experience points. You have more the sense of an open world exploration. On the other hand, of course, the sense of tension that comes out of this is palpable. It is very effective. It gives everything a different quality. It forces you to make tough decisions. Sometimes there will be a fast way to go somewhere, but it is extremely dangerous. So you have to choose between taking that risk at that point or going in a different direction, spending much more time. It may be safer, it may be a worse thing in the long run. There are just things that, of course, make sense. Well, say have a specific meaning precisely because of this situation. And thematically, this countdown clock works really well. There were times in which I found myself rushing through the paragraphs, reading the text very fast, and trying to, okay, I need to solve this battle quickly because I'm running out of time. Let's fight, let's fight. And of course, there's no connection whatsoever between the time that I spend reading a paragraph or playing a battle and the time that passes in the universe of the narration. It can take me 4 hours to read a paragraph. It will still only mean that 10 minutes pass in the universe of the story, but it doesn't matter. The fact that I felt that urge to move on and keep going actually just is evidence of how well represented the theme is, how the theme is really jumping out of the page and put me, the player, in a similar, somewhat similar emotional state of that of my characters. So thematically, this is probably the most intense adventure that I played by Dark City Games. This is really an adventure in which I felt that I was in that situation, in which I was faced with those challenges and with those decisions, even more than in other adventures they played by Dark City Games. So I had a very good time playing the game. Again, I do not know that it is a game that I'll be able to play very much in the future, certainly not with the same joy, with the same excitement, but I just had so much fun playing it so far that, you know, the fact that it may not have a huge repeat value for the future really is a minor concern. This is a really fun adventure. If you like sci-fi with, again, dark tones and with the sort of like thriller atmosphere, then I think this is an adventure that can appeal to you. If you're looking for an RPG to play with your friends, one that is very accessible, doesn't rely on complicated rules, that you can get started very easily, or just you're looking for a choose-your-own-adventure type of experience, again, with a very interesting setting and interesting challenges, I think that Voice Station 57 would be a good choice.